All right, everyone, so we're going to get started. Hopefully everyone that is planning to be on the webinar is actually already on. For those who either joined late or weren't able to make it this morning for one reason or another, we are recording this webinar. And over the next week or so, we will be able to distribute that, and we will distribute that out to all of the coaches as well as the administrators. The way that can be sent out to those individuals that do need to listen to it and get some of the information that they may have missed today. All right. So today we're here to talk about building effective partnerships. This is going to be a really concrete role clarification training for both care coordinators and for family partners. So we're going to be talking about several different pieces this morning. It's going to really be kind of the who, what, when, and how of partnership. So some of the goals that we've scheduled for today's webinar are we want to provide some clarity around the role of care coordinators and family partners in wraparound. We understand that introduction training provides a lot of concrete information for care coordinators on what they need to do. But that, you know, in the months that we've been coming to New York since that, there's been some level of confusion around what the role of the family partner is and how they can also partner with care coordinators as well as with families in the wraparound process. So we want to make sure we touch on that and clarify that for you all. We want to talk about the tasks and responsibilities of each role. And we're going to do that by dividing it into looking at the different phases of wraparound. So more in depth into that. We're then, according to each phase, going to highlight where partnership and collaboration between the two roles can occur in the process and how that can best occur throughout. And then finally, we want to make sure that for each phase of wraparound that you're all clear what products should be produced out of each of those phases. So the products that the care coordinator is responsible for, and what are the products that the family partners are responsible for. It's going to be kind of where we focus today. We will have a short period at the end of this webinar for some questions related to the materials that we present here today in case there's any needed clarification. So in terms of other implementation challenges that may encounter when you go back to the field, we want to make sure that you continue to seek support from your local coaches. We have 5 local care coordinator coaches, and we have 3 parent-peer support coaches. So those are individuals that should be meeting with you regularly for supervision and coaching, and they can also shed some light on any of the concerns or challenges that you may encounter, as well as answer any questions. If additional outstanding questions once you've gone back and begun implementing, we encourage the coaches to reach out to us and send us those questions. So that way we can begin to provide some additional clarification in January when we begin introducing the model for group supervision.
So let's talk about the role of all team members. When you've seen successful teams succeed, that's kind of redundant, isn't it? You know, what are the elements that you see present? I think all of you can think of a time when you've either, you know, one team that's really soared or have seen teams really soar. What are the elements that it's to really get people working together? And we'll talk about a team. I think sometimes the term gets confused because we, you know, often just refer a wraparound to the team, but really what is the team? Now I'm talking about the team in general, but more specifically the team of the family partner and the care coordinator, because what I see happen often across the country when I train family partners and care coordinators is that there's always this angst around, you know, how do we work together? How can I, you know, depend on someone else to do work that I think that I be responsible for? How do we get that done? And so if you think of really what it takes to build any kind of team, any kind of partnership really, not not even just team. Communication is number one. Being able to communicate with one another, and also being able to follow through, doing what you say you're going to do, and making sure that that the other person you and that you can trust that person, that you will both follow through on what you say you're going to do. There are no shows in wraparound. And when I say that, I want you to think about it, because I think oftentimes what we see is a partner or a care coordinator that, feels like they're the one that's going to save the day for this family. And, in the healthy profession, we often are in that place where, it's our role to try and support or fix something, and we're focused on that. But in wraparound, it's about the team. It's about the whole team working together and being able to make it work. And so, if you're one of those folks that likes to be the star, you got to step back a little bit and share the glory with the team. I often compare it to, the baseball players that like to get up to the plate and hit that home run when when it's not the right time to make the home run. So you've got to step back, and you've got to make sure that everyone on the team is being a star and not just you. And a lot of that depends on being able to partner. The things when we talk about the family partner and the care coordinator working together and really being partners is, it's more than just being a pair or just saying, well, we're supposed to go out together and do X, Y, or Z. It really is, thinking about what does that look like? How can you be mindful of that risk? And, calling up the family partner or calling up the care coordinator and say, hey, we've got a new family, we're going to schedule to go out together, and then just, automatically doing that, you've got to really think about, why are you going out together? What's the purpose of it? Why would you send two people rather than one? And, when it comes to families being supported, what we realize is that it sometimes it takes a team. It takes more than one person. And what we also realize is that everyone has different perspectives on what can happen. And so I want you to really be mindful when you're planning to go out and work with families about what it is you're going to do, talking to one another, deciding who's going to do what, not being duplicative, not scheduling, many meetings for a family that, might have 6 kids at home that they're trying to manage, and then, calling them and saying, hey, we're going to show up, 3 times this week because we want to meet with you for the hours. And, I'm over-exaggerating, but you get the point. We've got to be careful about not being more of a burden on the family than we were not involved in them. So up on the screen, you can see the qualities of an effective team member. Sure, you've all seen them before, but that, being able to be reliable, being able to listen actively to one another. And it's not just about listening, but it's really listening actively enough to really be able to know that there's a great there, to function as an active participant. You're not going to go into a partnership or a team and just sit back and just watch everybody else take the lead. You've got to be able to share openly. And probably the most important piece of it is to be flexible, because you all know with some family that there are times when things just don't go the way that they were planned, and it's not the end of the world. You just back up and you think about, okay, let's approach this a different way, and do a little problem solving, and always be able to respect one another and be supportive. So this slide is really is an old slide, actually, but it comes from when systems of care were really being first talked about and having peer family support really involved. And so what is a collaborative partnership? It's really about, partnering with one another, but realizing that equal partners doesn't mean that parents and professionals assume each other's roles, but that each respects the other role and contributions. And so we bring our contributions to the project.
And another piece of that is that, again, while the professionals are the ones that are bringing a lot of that technical knowledge and expertise regarding wraparound, as well as some of the clinical knowledge regarding services and resources that are also available, we need to remember that parents, especially those parents that are in the role of the parent peer support partner or family partner, as you guys call it in New York, they're the ones who really have the most intimate knowledge, of what it's like to be in a family's shoes, because they've been there. They've done that. They've got the T-shirt to prove it, probably a couple of T-shirts to prove it. They understand that the expertise that parents can provide about their children and about their family and about the unique skills and capabilities, values, beliefs, and preferences of families is hugely important in order for wraparound to be a success. In order for this process to be something that families experience in a different way than they've experienced services before. So I think it's really important for us to be able to understand the value that each role, the care coordinator and the parent peer support partner, really bring and contribute to the entire process. As Joanne said, the process is never more important than the family. And so, again, we need to ensure that we are not so focused on the tasks we're there to accomplish for our role individually, but that we're constantly looking to how is this impacting the family? How is what we're doing supporting, wraparound in moving the family forward to achieve their goals that they've set for themselves? So we'll start by looking a little bit and doing an overview of the role of each, the care coordinator and the family partner. And so when we look at this, I think what sort of pops out is that there's three primary areas of responsibility that the care coordinator has. So the first would be team development. And in that also involves, because as we all know, the family is part of the team, as are the care coordinator and the family partner. So it talks about really the bringing of individuals together. So then, bringing the family together so that we can talk with them and elicit their story. When we say family, we're talking about the whole family. So whoever that is that the family considers to be part of that family, or the caregiver in the home. We don't also forget about the siblings. They're very important people as well that need to be part of that conversation. Also, we want to ensure that we're engaging various perspectives, so not only within the family, also perspectives of various team members, both formal and informal and natural. Those individuals are going to have very unique perspectives. Know these families in different ways, and many of them will know them as much more than just the sum of the crises or events that the family has been through. So it's important that we that perspective as well. I also want to ensure that as care coordinators that we help foster a sense of ownership amongst all team members. That's one of the reasons why we really look at establishing a team mission, is so that all team members have goals that they can work towards in engaging in this process with the family. There's several other things that we do within the team that oftentimes involve managing conflict, mediating conflict, and we oftentimes have to do that in order to bring different individuals into the team process. Sometimes there may be mandated individuals, professionals that the family struggle, understand the value of having them at the table, and we need to talk with them about that. The same goes for having some natural and informal members at the table. We really need to start building rationale and talking about how can we create safe environments for teams to be able to accomplish and work towards goals in wraparound. All of the care coordinator that I think is really important is, again, what we're talking about here today, is that partnership and collaboration with the family partner. That is a tremendous piece of that team process. And establishing that partnership from the moment the referral comes in is hugely important, and role modeling and demonstrating that throughout all the phases of wraparound is what's going to really help to propel this process forward. And again, having family partners in wraparound is a tremendous asset to the process, not only for the family, but for the whole team. Care coordinators are also responsible for ensuring plan development. So a lot of that has to do with developing that initial plan of care, as well as the subsequent plans of care. So they're always looking for results. So they're checking for outcomes. They're checking for behavior change. They're checking for movement towards need met and vision achieved. It's the care coordinator's job to ensure that people are following through with their commitments. And, everyone on the team is involved, not only in the brainstorming and strategizing process, but that everyone leaves with something to do. So they feel like they're a valued member of the team and that them being present is meaningful to the process. Again, the care coordinator is also the one that is responsible for documenting all of that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a few. And finally, meeting facilitation. So again, the care coordinator is the one that's standing up there and they're leading the meeting. They're going to be facilitating the process, ensuring that everyone is working together. They're going to facilitate that decision-making, that choice, that ownership, and they're also responsible for managing time and ensuring that the meetings are continuing on a regular basis.
In contrast to the care coordinator, yearly roles of managing and blending perspectives in round, family partners' focus is threefold as well. And I think oftentimes we think that about family partners as the role just being working with family and and supporting the family. Really, there are other focuses, and you'll see on the screen. Their work is focused on working with the family, but also working with professionals, and then also specifically working wraparound when we're talking about a wraparound process. There's a difference between family partners that work in wraparound and don't work in wraparound in what they do. The unique piece, the thing that makes a family partner different is their lived experience. They're raising their own child, able to figure out how to get through it and still be standing. Really the key to being able to support the process. And it's not just in the process of supporting the family, but it's also to be able to use their own personal story to help professionals understand what the family might be going through, to understand how things might need to be changed slightly to accommodate because of the family situation. But you really are there to support the family, but also to support the process of wraparound. So to be mindful constantly about how do they support the parent, but then how to keep the wraparound process continue to move forward by supporting that parent to be able to be a full participant. So when family members work with families, if you think about really what they do is they are able to make that connection through self-disclosure. But notice up there on the screen that I put in strategic self-disclosure because it's not just about going out, meeting a family, sitting down, smelling your beans and, telling them, how things were for you and, and maybe you're still bad, but you're still going. It's really about hearing the family story and being able to strategically pull from your own story as a family partner to help the parents have hope again, to be able to build that relationship with one another because you both have had the experience of raising a child with mental health challenges. Through working with families, family partners are really able to keep the process focused with the family on strengths. Often families come to us and they're in crisis. They are just about at the end of their rope. A family partner can use their own lived experience to talk about how they may too have been in that place. But change the focus to be really able to focus, going on by what the family is doing right. Because they're not going to get better based on their deficits and their pathologies. They're going to get better based on the things that they have strengths in. And the family partner can really help support the parent into kind of making that shift to be more strength-based. And all really being able to recognize the fact that so many of the behaviors that they may be seeing in their child or in others really relates to that whole concept of underlying need. Again, family partner is able to do by illustrating parts to support their own story to support the parent and to be able to make that shift. What about working with professionals? Family partners do similar to the thing with professionals. There may be times when they're in meetings or they're having a conversation with someone, and the conversation may be seemed to be going in the wrong way, and the family partner may be the one, because of the relationship they've developed with the family, to kind of sense things aren't quite going the way that we would hope that they would go. And they're able to then help, communicate, first of all, respect and acceptance of the parent's perspective, even when they don't agree. So one of the things, I would caution all of you caregivers with is that family partners are trained to really support the parent's perspective even when they don't necessarily agree. The idea is that they'll work with the family to make sure that the family has the options. But again, when the family has made up their mind and they're clear about their perspective, the family partner supports that parent's perspective. I think that's key for professionals they're working with to understand, is that it's not always about the family partner's choices or perspective. It's about supporting the parent, because actually is key to their role. They recognize the strengths of the family and help families remain strength-based, but they do the same thing with professionals. I mean, you all know that you've been in a team meeting or you've been in some other kind of a meeting where there is bias exhibited toward a family member. Family partner's there to try and help turn that conversation around, and the best way to interrupt bias is to really be able to turn it around and use a genuine strength to be able to counteract kind of that bias that happens. They use the strategic self-disclosure in giving examples about underlying needs to professionals, and really help encourage folks to be open and to practice that back and forth communication. In the last one, working with wraparound, I just want to reiterate that the family partner is not only a champion of the parent, but also a champion of wraparound. And so it's the work they do is prepare the family to be able to be an active participant in wraparound. And then they do that by really partnering and collaborating with the care coordinator.
All right, we're going to move into some of the specific tasks of each role in each of the phases of wraparound. So I want to start, because I know that in Orange County you guys do things slightly differently than some other places, where you have a central intake unit. And so I want to talk a little bit about transition from intake to, I think, the formal care coordinator and family partner. I think it's really important that we understand that when intake is going out there, they're spending a good amount of time gathering information about the family. And so we want to ensure that we have intentional transitions from intake when that's how the case originates. We make sure that the family doesn't have to repeat the exact same information again and again and again. So it's very important to ensure that when you do receive information, making you aware that you'll be receiving a referral from the intake unit, that there, again, is some intentional conversations with intake regarding the family and the referral that you've received, as well as all the additional information that they've gathered. There also is a scheduled intentional initial face-to-face meeting where that transition from intake to the formal care coordinator and family partner can occur. Again, having that joint meeting is really going to provide the intake unit with an opportunity to hear the story and the strengths, prospective team members that they gathered, then to be able to introduce the formal or the newly assigned care coordinator and family partner to the family. So that intentional transition is really, really hugely important. It supports that rapport building. It helps the family to see that everyone is working in partnership with one another, that there's not gaps in the process, that there has been extensive communication, so that the newly assigned care coordinator and family partner are on the same page with the intake unit. It's also going to provide some information, going to be imperative that we're going to need moving forward, and that will help us to again, be able to engage the family better. So meeting is crucial. So if that happens, at that initial face-to-face meeting, the newly assigned care coordinator and family partner will also do several things. And so the care coordinator, again, as part of their role, they're continually looking and seeking additional information on those initial conditions. When we say initial conditions, it's those reasons for referral, kind of when the family first noticed that maybe something was going on with their child or their youth, when they first reached out to the system or became involved in the system. And it's not just about those events, but it's about kind of the meaning of those events. So how did the family get through those tough times? Who did they turn to? How did they seek support? What was helpful and effective? What worked and what didn't work? So it's really important that they assess that, and from that, begin to pull out some of those strengths and better understand the context of the behaviors that we're seeing. The coordinator also, during that engagement and team preparation phase, needs to be assessing for safety. We understand, that families have arrived at wraparound because oftentimes their needs exceed what's been available to them through services or in their community previously. So we want to make sure that we really assess for those safety risks, the reasons for referral, what's involved in wraparound, and that we develop a very concrete, detailed, and specific safety plan that's both proactive as well as reactive. The goal is always to prevent that crisis, but if something is going to happen, that everyone knows exactly what they need to do in order to resolve that crisis or that safety concern. It's also the role of the care coordinator to ensure that they're explaining wraparound in a way that encourages participation. So explain it to the family in a way that helps them to be able to understand in concrete terms what this process is about, in a way that helps them to understand and build rationale for the inclusion of, the formal and informal supports in the process. It's also the role of the care coordinator to ensure that they're explaining to others who are going to be joining the team, about wraparound and, why it would be important for them to be part of this process and support the family meeting their goals. There also, is going to be completing a family story. And so, again, that's something that, is going to be a balanced, comprehensive family story that doesn't just talk about the traumatic events, or I like to say the trauma and drama of a family's life, but provides meaning to those events, and looks at the strengths, again, of how they got through those, their vision of a better tomorrow, what their goals are, what they hope to accomplish in engaging in this process. And it'll help us to understand, from a relational perspective, the family. What are their values and beliefs and their traditions? Who they turn to before for support? What do on a daily basis to manage? So we want to talk about all of that. And also the care coordinator's job to ensure that they are developing 10 need statements for each individual in the family. So again, we start with thoughts and feelings, and then we translate those into underlying need statements using words know, feel, or understand in order to help go deeper and understand the why behind the behavior. Why would anyone need to be behaving this way? Or what that hole in the heart that is driving people to behave in ways that they know that they shouldn't, or do things that they shouldn't, but preventing them from doing what they know they could or they should be doing. And finally, we want the care coordinator to be the one who really arranges that initial child and family team meeting, and sets that pace for the team as well.
So how's the family partner in phase one? I mean, what is their responsibility? Thinking about, what Kim's talking about is the intake and making that smooth transition. I think from my perspective, I would come up with a catchy name for Kristen and Becky. Maybe we might want to call them the engagement specialist or the welcome wagon. If we're thinking about being creative here, Kim. But they're going out and they're doing stuff together. I mean, and just as the family partner and the care coordinator are doing, both are looking at the family story. We're both looking at trying to understand what's happened, the crisis, why is the family struggling, why is the youth struggling. They're both looking for strengths and they're both looking for needs. And it's not duplicative because they both have their focuses. And so, when you were listening to Kim talk about what the care coordinator does in phase one, it was really focused on getting enough information to be able to get that first team meeting together, to be able to identify the strengths and the needs, and to understand where the parent is struggling, where the youth is struggling, and possible team members and all that. I mean, those are very concrete things that Kim will talk about when she gets to pick. The same is true with the family partner. There are some things that they're focused on developing as well. They both, a coordinator and family partner go out together and meet with the parent and explain. The family partner will be explaining kind of the purpose of peer-to-peer support. What is it? And what should you expect to see from it? They're really explaining their role just as the care coordinator would do. And again, if the duo together, they would be hearing the family story in a way that's really most comfortable for the family. The partners are really going to be able to key in on that because of their own personal experience. They meet with the family again, and they will be meeting with the family again one-on-one and go probably a layer deeper than the initial meeting with the care coordinator. The family partner is really the one that will really get to know the family and to not only understand their history, culture, and beliefs, but really, how did they recover from their past struggles? What were the things that happened that they were able to get through, and how did they do it? They'll be able to talk about their own story and really share the fact that they're still standing, that they managed to get through it. And for some of us, sometimes that depends on the time of day or the time of year. But we managed as family partners. And that, living kind of example of being able to provide hope to the family is so crucial to the role. The products that they'll be walking away with out of their meeting with the family is something that's called the Parent Strength Survey. We didn't put the products actually into this team meeting, but when Kim and I come and do our visit in January, I'll be able to make sure that everybody has a copy of this parent strength survey. It's really something that the family partner sits down and by listening to the family story is able to fill out with them and confirm that they're on track. A lot of what it does is it assesses the team participation skills of the family, of the parent, and really how best to support them to have the skills that they need to be able to be a full participant in the wraparound process. It's very focused on that, as well as pulling out how the family takes care of themselves. The thing about customizing and matching information and resources that might be most useful to the family, and especially in engagements, is that initial kind of stabilization. Where can they get the family hooked up with? Is there a food bank that's needed? Is there child care that's needed? Right? Are there some things that the family partner can do to help the family be able to stabilize things enough to start the wraparound process? There's something that is called, not my favorite name, the CAST tool. The CAST tool really stands for the Collaborative Assessment of Support tool. A word, and that's probably why we've shortened it at the university. But it really is a tool that's geared at the family partner being able to determine or really make a good guesstimate of how much support they might need based on the parent's current support network. And so you can see, while their focus in going out and engaging is the same, there are very specific things that the family partner and care coordinator do during that phase. Kim?
Now we're going to move into talking about partnership opportunities. And in order to just help with the understanding, we've broken down the partnership opportunities according to meeting. First one in particular, because I think in terms of partnership and meetings, we probably have the most opportunity to role model that partnership for families during phase one. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about the initial face-to-face meeting. Again, you guys are organized with the intake unit, or as Joanne called it, the welcome wagon, which I love. I think it's so family-friendly when you put it into those terms. This is where really that intentional transition from intake would occur with the family. So again, we would need to ensure that intake and the formally assigned care coordinator and family partner are communicating prior to, in order to not only understand the family better, but also to schedule this meeting and ensure that everyone who is involved can be a part of this meeting. And all parts should really attend this. So both Kristen and Becky, as well as the newly assigned care coordinator and family partner. Joanne mentioned earlier, we don't want our initial face-to-face meetings to go for too long. Face-to-face meetings should probably be about an hour max, and especially if the family partner and care coordinator are working together to elicit targeted information that each role needs. We talked about on the last few pages. It really should be something that, again, is not a burden on the family. And we're going to do this several times because I know that, just historically working in this field, oftentimes people do go. They will spend a few hours trying to get that information. We need to be very guided and targeted in our discussion to ensure we're getting enough information where we understand the family in a balanced and comprehensive way. But that, again, we're not making this process overwhelming for the family. Again, the process is never more important than the family that we're working with and that's experiencing the process. So as we look at this slide, some things that we need to accomplish during that initial face-to-face meeting, we need to be talking about how we're going to work collaboratively together, and how we're going to target information and guide the conversation with families. We want to make sure that we start off by presenting that partnership to the family from the go. So contact them together. Nowadays, with conference lines and all of that, we don't have to physically be sitting in the same room. We could do a three-way call, and making sure that families, understand that they, will be being transitioned from intake, that you're the newly assigned team that will be working with them. And during that meeting, we should briefly introduce ourselves explain the process in a way that families can understand. So not using a lot of that jargon, but being just very, very real about what this process looks like. And then scheduling that initial visit where if we do have intake involved, them as part of that. Attending that initial face-to-face meeting together is going to be a wonderful opportunity to showcase the partnership between the care coordinator and the family partner. So again, it's about eliciting that comprehensive story that is going to be inclusive, again, of those initial conditions, the stress, the team, and that is constantly seeking understanding of the context for the behaviors that have occurred. It's also important that the care coordinator and family partner work together to help the family and support them in developing a family vision, something that's not necessarily behaviorally focused, but that, again, is going to reframe for the family what their goal is for the end of this process. So we want it to be future-oriented. We want it to be positive. And so it oftentimes is very helpful to have both parties working together, both roles working together to help family better find that vision and sometimes do a little reframing as necessary. Also, having 2 and 3 heads is better than 1. So have both parties, both roles, be part of that crisis plan conversation. This is going to help us to ensure, again, that it's a really detailed, concrete crisis and safe plan that can be utilized and implemented. It's a plan that builds off of what's worked before in the past. It also builds off of the important people who have meaningful relationships with the family, that it crosses multiple settings so that we're not just talking about the home environment, but that we're looking at home, school, and community as appropriate. And that partnership can be really huge in coming up with some strategies and ideas to move from active planning to reactive planning as needed. Finally, creation at that initial meeting around buy-in from the family around the team development. Often hear care coordinators say that they struggle with this. And so this is a great partnership opportunity because I think that a lot of family partners who have been through wraparound can speak to, the importance of having a team, how that can really make this process different from the other services and supports that they've been involved in before. The initial team meeting. That initial face-to-face meeting. Care coordinator and the family partner should be, again, coming together to Yes.
I'm just going to insert that we slightly moved the slides around. This is previously slide 13. In case I just want to remind them.
Okay, thank you. So this is going to be really, an opportunity for the care coordinator and the family partner to come together outside that initial face-to-face meeting. This is a great way to ensure that we're sharing information. As we talked about before, while there may be similar activities that are occurring during phase 1, each role is looking for different pieces of the puzzle. And so this provides an opportunity for us to come together and to talk about what each of us gathered from the initial face-to-face meeting. Again, there may be different things that were gathered around the initial conditions. There may be strengths that one person heard or was able to identify, and the other person maybe didn't, sort of see it in the same way. Also going to give us greater insight into the team and, who are those meaningful, relevant, important individuals that should be part of this team process and need to be at the table in order for this to be effective for the family and for the team. And then also kind of looking at that context again for the behaviors in terms of moving forward with identifying underlying need statements. So this is all very crucial because this is going to contribute to some of the products that are going to be produced by each role. So information really does need to be intentionally shared and discussed. This is also an opportunity to discuss who is best suited to engage certain team members. So perhaps, there is family partner may have a relationship with someone else on the team. It may be somebody that we're looking at from a professional realm that they already have a relationship with because they worked with other teams. The family may indicate that they feel comfortable engaging their natural supports, but they don't know how to explain wraparound. And so maybe the family partner would support them in that process, whereas the care coordinator would target the engagement of others. So we want to have intentional conversations about how that's going to work too. So again, we don't want to be duplicating efforts. We want the family to have to go through and duplicate things, and we also make sure that we're each working smarter, not harder, in terms of engaging team members as well. Anything else you'd like to add?
I got it, Kim.
Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to actually the family partner meeting.
So, I hope that we're not confusing you all about this meeting and that meeting. And, I actually put in here that this is an interim meeting. But, hopefully that very initial meeting with the family by the care coordinator and family partner happens together. I just, one thing is to think about, it does take extra time and effort to manage getting two people out to meet with the family rather than one. One of the things that I think is really important to remember is that you are trying to gather a team together. And if we, as the professional partners working with families, are not able to manage that between the family partner and the care coordinator, it's probably a great example for the family that they're going to be able to manage it with all the other folks that we're going to expect to be as part of the team. So it really starts with us in the very beginning, that ability to take the extra time and effort to talk to one another and then schedule that meeting to go out together initially. After that initial meeting, the partner will then, hopefully at that first meeting, will schedule this meeting, but if not, they'll meet with the family individually, one-on-one. While in the meeting with the family partner and the care coordinator, when they meet with the family, the coordinator has to be prepared to allow room for the family partner to share parts of their story, because it's just necessary for them to be able to make that connection. And I know that traditionally, a lot of times that happens just one-on-one between the family partner and the care and the parent. But in our model, it's really about being able to get folks comfortable with that ability to do that. And again, it's strategic sharing. It's not the whole deal. So the family partner goes back and meets with the family again, one-on-one. Really what they're trying to do is establish that peer relationship, to build that peer relationship that's going to support that parent through this whole process, and hopefully in the end create some self-efficacy with the family. Meet with the meeting to meet with the parent prior to that very first child and family team meeting, and they'll complete their tools. They've got the parent strength survey, the CAST, and then there's a connection and support map that really helps the parent think about the people that are involved in their life and how they support them in a little bit different way. It sounds like a lot of tools that have to be completed that, when Kim and I talk about a burden on the family, but really, as with the care coordinator's right family narrative, so much of that comes out of that initial first meeting where you really heard the family story. Almost enough that the family partner should be able to complete some of these tools almost without, and just checking in with the family. So those tools, taking care of it, this intro meeting, and at that meeting, usually the family partner walks away with a deeper understanding of what we've already heard initially, and are able to then go back and meet with their care coordinator, share information, and really help hone in on being able to assist the care coordinator writing the family narrative and being able to prep for and the strengths of the family. You think about it as having an extra pair of eyes and ears one more time that goes out while building that peer relationship, but they've really been able to hone in on the things that are going to be able to assist them at that child and family team meeting.
Great. So when we second face-to-face meeting, this would be the second face-to-face meeting with the family, the care coordinator, and the family partner. So again, it's important, as Joanne said, for us to continually be role modeling that team, partnership within a team. And so we want the care coordinator and the family partner to be able to go back together to the family. And at this meeting, we're really going to be focusing on sharing the information that we gathered during the first meeting and preparing the family to be going into the initial child and family team meeting. So during the second face-to-face meeting, we should have a developed and written comprehensive family story. And going back to the family as a team and talking with the family about the information we've gathered, accuracy, and consensus around how that family story is to be shared with the rest of the team at the initial meeting. It's important for families to understand that the story will be shared and to ensure that they're comfortable with how that story is going to be shared. In coaching, we've talked a lot about how you can share stories just based on kind of looking at the strengths of the family and of the team. But we make sure that we're doing that with the family ahead of time so they're not surprised, they know what to expect, and they're not nervous about what's going to be said, because again, this is the family's story. Also want to ensure that throughout that interaction that we're reviewing those functional strengths that we've identified. So we're not doing that in the telling of the story. We make sure that we have a list of strengths, not only for the family, but for those team members that we've gone out and we've engaged and have agreed to be part of the process. We want to view the family vision with the family to make sure that that is still their vision, better tomorrow, that those are the goals that they want to work towards. We want to ensure that we bring back our underlying need statements. And we're not going to bring back those thoughts and feelings. That's just what we use to develop the underlying need statements. But we're bringing back the 10 underlying need statements for each family member. We're going to ask families to look at those. And hopefully, if we've really understood the family story and begun to sort of understand the context for the behaviors we're seeing, we will also, the family will also connect to at least a couple of underlying need statements. So we want to prioritize 2 or 3 that they connect with. Those are going to be the need statements that we bring into the initial child and family team meeting. We want to make sure that we're checking for the effectiveness of the crisis plan. So if something's not working, we don't want to leave the family, without a plan that can be effective. It's important that when we develop that initial crisis plan, that be something that can support family until they make it to that initial child and family team meeting where we have the team together to revise and update it. However, if it's not working, we do want to make sure that as a team, the care coordinator, the family partner, and the family work to revise and adjust that. So it's really important in both roles that we talk with families about what they need to fully participate in this process, what they need to feel safe at the initial child and family team meeting, our concerns that they have, and we need to establish some ground rules that the family needs to in place for them to feel comfortable in this meeting. Oftentimes, as we talked about earlier, there can be some conflict between the family and other prospective team members. It may not just be with professionals. There may be other important people, whether they be informal or natural support, that need to be at that table, but that the family is worried about how they're going to interact throughout the process. So we talk about any of those ground rules that the family needs to feel safe and supported. And finally, we want to make sure that the family understands what this initial child and family team meeting will look like. So we review the agenda with them so they know how it's going to flow. We want to make sure that they're clear and still committed to the time, the date, and the location of that meeting. And, again, that we put the family in a position where they're going to have that voice, choice, and ownership of the process. So they need to be informed of how that process is going to flow. All right, so now I'm going to just move into just briefly looking at some of the products that each role produces. So again, in terms of completed products for the care coordinator during phase 1, we have a comprehensive family story. And as you see here, we talk about making sure it's documented from a relational as well as a strengths perspective. So again, that story should not just be about events on a timeline. That story needs to go deeper. We need to look at the strengths that are related to those events, and we need to look at the important relationships that have been there for the family and helped them to get through the tough times, as well as the good times in their lives. So we want to forget that, these families are more than a sum of the crises that they've had to encounter. There's a lot more to families than just the tough times. So we want to make sure we're looking at, what they do for fun, how they enjoy each other's company. What are some of the traditions they have as a family, things that they do together. We want to make sure that we have a detailed list of functional strengths that come out of those meetings. And that's not just for the family, but that's also for the team members. We have spent time hopefully talking with the family about team members. We've engaged with team members, and so hopefully have a clear understanding of the strengths that they also bring to the table into that initial child and family team meeting. Again, it should be very clearly documented. We also want to make sure that we have a list of the team members, individuals that are going to be present at the meeting, as well as any other potential team members that maybe we tried to engage and they may have been unavailable or we may have had difficulty reading those. It's important for everyone on the team to be aware of some of the other important individuals in the family's life and who's there for them, whether or not they are physically at that initial meeting. Finally, we're going to make sure that we have that initial needs list that will have been prioritized by the family, that we have those 2-3 per person identified for when we walk into the initial child and family team meeting. Some of the details of things we also don't want to forget about: confidentiality, signed leases, making sure we have all of the information of everyone that is involved in the process. And again, that as the care coordinator, we have taken the steps to ensure that we are prepared prior to walking into that initial child and family team meeting. That also includes ensuring that all of our post-it notes or visuals are also developed and prepared. Those can be things that if that's done prior to that second face-to-face meeting, those can also be brought and presented to the family there. Oh, we skipped one. There we go.
So family partner and the products that would be completed during this engagement and team prep. You've got, three products. I also included the fans in here because I know that's a requirement also by the county, I believe. But the products, when you really think about what the family partner is doing, is they're all meant to inform. So they're tools that are done with family that will really help inform the process. Parent strength survey really helps the family partner hone in on areas where the family might be struggling or might struggle in a CFTM. It looks at those team participation skills. I mean, maybe you've got a family that has trouble with conflict management, with conflict, or they have trouble speaking up, or they're not good at delegating. It identifies those pieces of team participation skills. It makes the family partner aware of where the weaknesses might be, and I hate to call them weaknesses, but areas that they can then hone in on and support family. They will share that with the care coordinator, and together a care coordinator and family partner can decide how in that very first CTM they can support the family. For instance, if family has trouble with conflict, and being able to manage that in the team meeting, or say the parent has trouble, really being able to express their opinion. They can create a situation by double checking with the family to confirm that of an understanding or agreement. I mean, there's a situation that can be set up that's going to support the family the best way they can to be able to participate. Collective assessment of support tool, the CAST, really identifies the family support system. But not only identifies the family support system, but talks about, maybe a family has tons of support, but maybe people in their support network don't support them, don't buy into kind of what's happened with their child, and we may have lots of people there. Maybe those people are judging the family members or not, not really supporting them. So it helps, again, inform the process. The family partner will be sharing the information with a care coordinator. And so when you get to that very first CMM, you're aware of the situation of where there might be some, kid gloves that need to be put on to be able to manage it and make it go smoothly, and to avoid, any major or hidden agendas. The action and support map, again, as Kim talked about, getting those crucial supports on the team. It may not happen in the beginning, but really that's one of the things that the family partner will be doing all along. They will be supporting the care coordinator to make sure that they try and increase team membership, as well as supporting the family so that they can manage once wraparound is gone. The details of it is around kind of an information binder. It might include a brochure that defines the wraparound process, any individualized resources that can be assessed easily, or including the family support organization or support groups or whatever that might look like. All contact numbers for everyone on the team, and also the completed tools, the connection and support map, and the CAS that would be part of that binder. That binder is meant to be ongoing, and as the planner and other things are developed, family can add all of that information so that it's kept in one place, help keep them on track during the wraparound process.
So as you might remember from introduction training, phase one, engagement and team preparation, is a pretty intense phase. And so we want to make sure that, you guys understand also that we've spent so much time on that, because that's really setting the foundation for wraparound and the foundation for having effective child and family team meetings, the foundation for ensuring that the family feels that they have, access, voice, and ownership in the process. So we do want to make sure that, you understand that we are investing very heavily on the front end. But once we've developed that information and we go into those initial child and family team meetings, that really should help us to propel that process forward families. And ultimately, if we did a great job building a team, it's going to result in a little bit less work for the professionals, both the care coordinator and the family partner professionals. So we go through phase two. A lot of the facilitation duties, as you'll remember from introduction training, those are the care coordinator. So I have a list of different pieces here, and I just want to sort of review them very, very quickly. But again, it is the care coordinator's role to really prepare everything walking into that initial child and family team meeting. So it goes for making sure that all of the, all the visuals are prepared. Making copies of agendas for everyone. Ensuring that everybody's been oriented to the process and understands like what's going to happen when they come to this meeting and what their roles will be. The coordinator during that meeting is going to introduce the process, the team members. They're going to spend that time establishing ground rules, ensuring that the meeting's going to flow smoothly, and using those ground rules hopefully be able to resolve any conflicts that might emerge. The coordinator also is the one that's responsible for presenting the agreed upon family story, one that the family and the partner and care coordinator built consensus around sharing. Present the strengths of the individuals, of the family, and team members. And so, that will also be something that's elaborated on. So it's not just about these are the strengths we've identified. It's about seek additional strengths to be added, maybe hidden, that we may not be aware of. Others do know, so we want to make sure that we put those in as well. We're going to be the ones that lead the process in terms of reviewing the family vision and guiding the team during this initial meeting to create a vision for what we hope to accomplish as a team. So again, we don't want to separate the family out from that. The family is also considered to be part of the team. So it's everyone there hoping to accomplish together. This is going to help to build that sense of collaboration and cohesiveness of the team. The care coordinator will also introduce those need statements and prioritize from the family. Although this indicates a solicit additional perspective on needs, I want to give everyone on the team an opportunity to sort of ask questions about need statements. As you know, need statements in round look different than any of the need statements or goals that may be put onto other types of treatment plans. So you may have some individuals who are at that meeting who need to have additional clarification. And the care coordinator needs to be prepared to be able to explain how we do needs and wraparound and why those needs look different. It's uncommon that someone at the meeting, not always just professionals, will push back and say, well, that's great, but they just need to start going to school. So you need to be able to explain why that's not a need statement, how we're looking beneath the behaviors, driving them. Again, the team is going to prioritize those needs. So during the initial child and family team meeting, the care coordinator should guide the team as a whole to identify just maybe 3 need statements max. One be for the target youth, who is the individual that's been referred to wraparound, and the other should be for someone else in the family, whether that be a caregiver, parent, or other sibling. So we make sure that we have multiple need statements for various individuals. And then finally, we want to make sure that we're working together and brainstorming. So when we talk about brainstorming, it is the care coordinator's role to ensure that that brainstorming process flows. It's not about just throwing out one idea and planning around that idea. We want to ensure that we've generated at least 10 different brainstormed, creative, unique, individualized ideas for each need statement based on the strengths of the family as well as the strengths of the team. The family, again, are going to be the individuals that choose brainstormed actions they want to put to their plan. So the team does not choose unless it is mandated. So if we something like it's mandated by juvenile probation that they attend anger management, we do need to ensure that we talk about that and somehow include that so that we are meeting that need of the system. But all other brainstormed ideas, it's the family that chooses. So the family is going to choose for each need statement. So if the need statement is about the youth, we want to ensure that everyone who's part of that family who lives under the roof in the house is choosing for the youth statement as well as the youth, and vice versa for others. Again, it is the facilitator's role to ensure that the tasks are concretely outlined in a specific and detailed manner. So when everyone walks away from that table, there's no question about who does what, when, how, and where. We want to make sure that we've addressed any challenges that may exist to implementing these strategies that we've determined. And then we want to talk about, again, how we're going to measure progress, how we're going to know that we've been successful, that we've been able to see behavior change. The care coordinator should also ensure that all meetings are scheduled prior to leaving that initial child and family team meeting. So we want to walk out of there and not have another meeting scheduled. We can schedule one meeting or we can schedule multiple meetings depending on what the need is and what's going to work best for the team.
So listening to Kim, I think how clear she makes it about what needs to be happening. And, going down the list of things that need to be done, it sounds so very clear. And yet, you're probably all going, how am I going to get all this stuff done? What I want to say to all of you is that it takes practice. It may not happen on your very first few families that you're working with, but it takes lots of practice. And I'm going to compare it to really hosting a party. And I don't know if any of you have hosted a party, but my guess is you probably have. And you have a dinner party at your house, or you host a big event or something like that. You know how much time it takes to prepare for that ahead of time. And you try and go through your list and make sure that, you send out the invites, you bought the food, you cooked the food, you made the house looks wonderful, the music's playing, the whole thing to make the party fun. And then when everybody arrives, hopefully you'll be able to sit down and enjoy it. And what we're trying to get you to. But there's so much detail that happens in that, that first phase that, and then for the facilitator really being the one in the planning phase where you get up on your feet and you've got to facilitate that crowd and get everybody on the same page. And it's, it's difficult. It takes a lot of wherewithal in being able to move forward. What you've got to remember is you've got, there's two of you that you can depend on one another to be able to move the process forward. So while the facilitator, care coordinators on their feet, and conduct orchestra, getting everybody moving in the right direction, family partners there to support them as well as the parent. And during this plan process, while the family partner really is honing in on making sure that the family's perspective is heard and trying to communicate kind of the respect and appreciation for the family and what they've been through and all of the members' strengths, not just the family's members, but everybody else that's participating in that team. They're assisting the process to keep it moving forward. You're working together as a team to kind of make this kind of music that happens when you've got this partnership that's working. You may have, as a care coordinator, you're up there talking and you're trying to keep things strength-based, and someone comes to left field with, some judgment or bias about the family. Family partner's there to help interrupt that bias. Hopefully you're doing it by utilizing someone's strengths to be able to counteract the bias, but that's why they're there in the team. They can support the care coordinator and the family to keep it moving forward. They make parts of their own story to help someone who's struggling, trying to figure out what's going on with this family, to understand what it might be like for a family member or child with big behaviors. We're also continually listening to folks while, the care coordinator may be more focused on keeping the meeting running. The family partners, listening to make sure is there somebody else that maybe we should invite to the next meeting? How can we get someone else involved in this? Or what other kind of backtracking or work do we need to do while this is going on? They're mindful of supporting the family and keeping the process strength-based, and they're mindful of being able to normalize situations that come up by using their personal story to keep things moving forward. And they're also mindful about truly strength-based. I mean, you have to remain strength-based if you're going to do this process. Sometimes it's hard, and you need to be reminded to stay focused on the strengths. Keep things moving forward, and that's part of really what this planning phase is like for the family partner. So what are the partnership opportunities? Where are those areas of coming together? I've just mentioned several in this whole process. But like anyone else that sits in a child and family team meeting, a family partner will do a lot of what everyone else is doing, but they can start the process moving forward. They ask, what are the family strengths as a care coordinator, and it falls on silence. And then it's like, what do you do next? No one can name a strength for this family. Family partner's there to be able to keep the ball rolling, to get it started. And so the two of you can be teaming together, to identify the functional strengths and moving to a team mission, and encouraging it, prizing the need statement, and really clarifying, for the team members about what it's all about. You're working together as a team. Family partner sits in that meeting as a participant and as a supporter of the family, but they also are there to help the other participants of the child family team actively engage and get them reading about what needs to be done and contribute effectively.
And one of the things I just want to add here is that I know both Joanne and I have worked, I've worked in models where, as a care coordinator, I have been partnered with family partner, and I've also worked in models where not. And I just want to reinforce just having that extra person there who's part of the process and is there to support not only the family but support around really does help to move the process forward. It takes a lot of that pressure if you work well with the family partner that you're partnering with. It takes a lot of that pressure off of the care coordinator to always be throwing out ideas. And so, if you guys can talk about, how you're going to work together and, sort of strategize about that before you walk in, it can make the meeting flow so much more smoothly.
Definitely.
So in terms of the products, the care coordinator is obviously going to be the one responsible for documenting a written plan of care. I'm going to go through all the different pieces. I think you guys are quite familiar with that. But one of the things that I do want to reiterate is that we need to ensure that we are documenting exactly what we wrote during the meeting. So it means that we need to ensure that whatever went up on those Post-it notes, or whatever other visuals were used, that is the exact plan that is also transferred onto the paper, and it goes into the system. That, again, should be very concrete, it'd be very detailed, very specific, and we really do need to ensure that we've laid out that who, what, where, when, and how, so everyone who receives that plan knows exactly what they're to do moving forward to support the family and to support the process. Again, that plan should be distributed to all team members. And so we want to ensure that that happens relatively quickly. We need to ensure that after the meeting, within about 48 to 72 hours, we can hopefully get that plan out to folks, whether it be via email, snail mail, or you partner together with the family partner to determine who might be able to drop that plan off. And again, as we said earlier, don't leave the initial child and family team meeting without scheduling other meetings while you have everyone there physically present. One is great, but more is also oftentimes helpful to ensure that everyone has that on their calendars, and you guys don't have to scramble, try and schedule dates that are going to work to get the team back together. So again, use all of the different resources we have, whether that be email or Facebook or whatever else seems to work best to ensure that everybody has that information.
So here that the products for the family partner during this phase are fairly slim because there was so much work done in that very first phase. One of the things I've been talking about family partners with is about a strength brochure. And they, when Kim came in and we're working with all of you, we talked about the family partners doing individual, narrative, a paragraph. We would be doing with the parent. I think that, some of our confusion was that the coordinator is also doing a family narrative, which is of the entire family, not just the parent, but some confusion around language. And so one of the things that we came up with is a strength brochure. And I can probably see Sue and Louise's heads shaking right now because we haven't quite worked out the details of it. But think about this product as being really a very short written acknowledgement of the parent's strength. Okay, the parent's strength. And we're focusing on the parent and the relationship between the family partner and the parent. It's really meant to be that personalized acknowledgement from the family partner to the parent. That kind of, you can do this, a sort of thing. It also is a nice product to be able to put into that transition portfolio as the family transitions out of wraparound. It really helps the family partner point out to the parent how far they've come in the end. So simple product expectations in this phase, but lots of support to the parent and lots of support to the care coordinator during this phase.
All right, so we're entering into phase 3. Phase 3 begins immediately following the initial child and family team meeting. So there are several things that the care coordinator is responsible for doing. During those ongoing child and family team meetings, we want to ensure that care coordinators that they're eliciting information regarding accomplishments, not only task accomplishments, but also other accomplishments and changes, and that we're continuing to document that. I think it's really important for us to ensure that we are getting that information prior to walking into subsequent child and family team meetings. I personally like to make sure that if I'm working with a family partner, that we talk about who's going to follow up on some of the progress that's been made, so that, again, we're not duplicating effort and we're not taking up more time than is necessary with team members or with family members. It's the care coordinator's role, though, to ensure that they're leading that conversation during ongoing child and family team meetings, and that, that we're talking about, the follow-through that's occurred. We're talking about the follow-through that hasn't occurred. Talking about the impact that it's had as well for the family, if any. Also important that we intentionally are creating opportunities for modification of the plan. As you all know, plans don't fail, or families don't fail, plans fail. And so we want to really live and breathe that throughout this process. So when things are not occurring in terms of task accomplishment or follow-through, we want to make sure that we don't just continue with those tasks. There's a reason that those didn't get implemented. We need to talk about it. We need to adjust those services, those supports, those strategies. We need to stop them. There may be things that, for some reason we thought that the family had chosen those, but they indicate that that's something that's not realistic, or there's too many additional challenges that they encounter to implementing those. If that's something that the family does not feel like it's helpful, unless it is a mandated service that they must complete or to, meet court requirements that have been laid out, we make sure that we give them the option of not continuing with those. And we want to make sure that any services that will be maintained, we've again talked about, are there any things that we need to add, any things that need to be adjusted. Also important that as a care coordinator, that we're the ones who are eliciting participation. So we need to be the ones that are talking with the team about who the team wants to take responsibility for implementing and following through and reporting back on on certain strategies and tasks. The care coordinator will continue to document and distribute those plans of care to ensure that everyone remains on the same page. That's important even for those that may be part of the team but are not physically present at each and every meeting. They should always receive copies so they all are on the same page regarding what to do, especially if we've adjusted crisis plans or other strategies that they were involved in. And finally, again, they're continuing to check in with all team members around that plan implementation.
The actual implementation phase, family partner may be redoing the CAST, the Collaborative Assessment of Support, that determines how much support family has. And by doing that, and really hopefully have been adding or they'll redo the connection support, they're able to sit down with the parent and really look at what progress has been made. Maybe in the very beginning, during initial phase, the CAST showed that the family really did not have a support network, was not, needed, of individual time one-on-one with the family partner. And maybe, hopefully, by this point, the CAST will show that the family has been able to start to develop supports, immunity, and are able to manage things. And the family partner can very easily, with both the CAST and the connection and support map, point out that self-efficacy to the family member and build kind of the idea of that the family is growing and building resiliency and building strength. And so they're great tools to be able to point those things out. There is a lot of work that's done on the sidelines between the family partner and the parent during all phases, but especially during this phase, because they really, helping the parent bring any issues that arise back to the team. They are sitting with the family and helping or to gain understanding of, when families feeling like that they're doing well, not doing well, where they might need some more support, and also helping family be able to articulate that in a meeting. They help them sort priorities. They, all of the things that need to be done to really help the family as much of an active participant and do it on their own. I mean, it's really creating that self-efficacy. That happens here is, and it may just start here, but there's really helping the parent focus on the self-care. Early in the beginning, when we all go out for those first team meetings, oftentimes the family is so stressed that if you tried to talk to them about self-care, they'd probably laugh at you. I know I would have. But hopefully by the implementation phase, the family moved forward enough and has started to get, some relief from the situation and sense that things are going to get better and have started to, develop some hope again. So they then start to think about their own self-care. And that idea of putting your oxygen mask on first before you support your child or someone else. Same is true with family members. They can then start to develop some of those self-care skills. But again, this process is the family will be participating in the meeting, will be sharing information back and forth with the care coordinator, family, and a lot of sideline support with the family as well.
All right, and to talk about some partnership opportunities for the family partner and care coordinator. As we've talked about already, it's really important that we're following up with everyone on the team regarding progress in terms of task implementation. This should be done before the meeting. And then the idea of divide and conquer. We need to work together on this. If we know that the family partner is going to be out meeting with the family, we want to, have them engage the family around progress. If we know that there's a meeting perhaps at the school and the family partner is going to attend with the family, we want to make sure that they're getting some input prior to the next meeting from them as well. So we need to be strategic about this. Again, making sure we're not duplicating efforts. That's so hugely important because that's where people begin to get very frustrated. So we need to be strategic in having ongoing conversations around that. And then when we find out that information, we need to be talking with one another and updating so that everyone walks into that meeting knowledgeable and aware, and that way we can do some troubleshooting if needed prior to the meeting and talk about maybe how both the partner and care coordinator will support each other and the process in that setting. It's always important to ensure that we are role modeling for the family and for the team. So we need to be also thinking about newly identified strengths can be added to the list. That should be something that is done and celebrated at every meeting, not just for the family, but for all team members too. That needs to be an intentional process. It's really hugely important that we're celebrating accomplishments and improvements. And so, this is one way to start supporting the process and advocating, for changes to be made to the plan if we're seeing that it's not working for the family. We need to make a big deal of the accomplishments that have been made. So we want to make sure that we also are rolling that celebration of progress. At every meeting, it is something that we can collaborate on is to discuss the addition of new team members. As those are coming out during the discussions or the team meeting discussions, we want to make sure that we're discussing, how are we going to engage these new individuals prior to the next team meeting? Does the family want to be involved in that process? Do they feel that somebody else on the team, maybe not the care coordinator or the family partner, are best suited, to work with them or to engage additional team members? So let's have an intentional conversation about how that will happen. Products. Plan implementation phase. There are several products again. We want to document any changes that are made. We want those to be adjusted and incorporated into the plan of care, and we want that to be sent out to all team members. We want to ensure that we're also not just documenting task accomplishment. I see this all the time when I work in different states across the country. We want to make sure that, yes, we need to know, it's important to know, did people follow through and take responsibility for the tasks that they agreed to complete. But it's also important for us to see, are we seeing changes in behavior? Has progress been made in reaching some of the outcomes that have been set? They're related to the reason for referral. Is family feeling they're moving closer to meeting the needs? Are we tracking that in a concrete way? Are we using a rating scale? Are we tracking that using graphs to see if we're really seeing some improvement in the families feeling like their needs are better met? Tracking how much closer we are to the family vision, the family mission. So those are all things we need to be cognizant of as care coordinators. And then finally, making sure that we are, establishing methods of communication for everyone during the interim, and that we're always working to new team members to process and elicit their objective that can be incorporated in story as well as to the process as a whole.
So that it's really updating things. I've got quarterly cast and connections to the support man. Really, it's just that first. It would be done they'd be done in the first phase, and again in this third phase as families are moving closer to transition. The strength brochure would be updated and new strengths would be included. And again, that's that exchange between the family partner and the parent, and the self-care plan, as we mentioned before. Family partner really is this part of the process while supporting the parent. They're making sure that the increasing their support network so that they're able to do this on their own once gone, and also maintaining and communicating that strength perspective all along the process. Part of what Kim talked about is the care coordinator really helping to evaluate how much progress has been made, how much closer to the family vision is the team. And a lot of the conversation that's going on between the partner and the parent during this phase would involve some of that, really talking about, how good is good enough, making sure that the family has, realistic expectations for their family, for their child. Oftentimes what I've seen is that it tends to be us, the team, that sets the standards and that we need to achieve more than the family. Oftentimes with families, when you go through like the light domains and you ask them, how are things doing in this area, if they get like, well, it's, we're feeling like we're about 50%, 51%, we're feeling, better in this area. Usually that is enough. Not always, but what it happens is that you can hone in on the areas where more needs to be done in other life domains. And, and part of the process that the coordinator is doing is by being able to evaluate that with the team, is keeping them focused on what are the areas that we really need to ramp up on to make sure that this family is ready to transition. Family partner does a lot of work with the family in preparing them to have those kinds of conversations and those meetings.
All right, now we're entering into phase 4, which is transition. And like everything else we do in wraparound, transition is intentional and needs to be intentional. We want to get to a point with families where, all of a sudden one day we go to their home and say, oh, you know what, our funding ran out, and so this is going to be our last meeting. We need to do intentional transition. And so that needs to begin 90 days approximately or 3 months prior to full wraparound ending. Hopefully that's something that you can, become aware of not only through the process that the family's made, but also through your own, certification and recertification requirements for continued wraparound with families. So again, we want to ensure that we are not transitioning, but that we're also planning for transition and that we're planning for the needs of the family post-wraparound. So again, if we have sufficiently met the current needs, are we hypothesized needs for the future? Perhaps right now the young person, 10 years old, and the family's worried what's going to happen when they hit puberty in a few years. So do we need to come up with plans for that? Or perhaps there's a particular event that there's some concern there being challenges. So we make sure that this is all very intentional. We also want to ensure that the family has experienced a practice, what it's going to be like for them after formal wraparound has ended. This means that as families voice a level of comfort, taking maybe a more lead in the process. So some families may say, hey, I feel really comfortable and confident. I'd like to actually, guide the process in terms of adding additional strengths, talking about accomplishment. Had some families that said, we really feel like we can lead this meeting on our own. We just maybe need you there for some support action. And that's great. We want families to do that. We also want to ensure that we are intentionally planning to help families become independent, sufficient, and sustainable. So it means that we look at what is our mix of team members. And by transition, we really should be seeing more informal supports than formal supports. It should really be an 80-20 mix. So we would be hoping if we have all done a great job and led the team through the process effectively, there will be a great number of informal supports there for the family moving forward. So hopefully they won't necessarily need to come back in to wrap around, get their needs met. Also, hopefully, we've been able to brainstorm creatively some ideas for if they no longer have access to formal service providers, how they can continue to work towards some of the goals they were focused on with them.
The transition phase is all about, as Kim said, like after a wraparound. That we are been conscious the whole time and really linking the parent to the natural supports and community resources and providers that may be needed in the future. But one of the things I would ask you all to think about, and family partners will probably be able to go here with me, but when you have a child with big behavior, oftentimes those traditional supports that we tend to get families hooked up with don't always work. Get involved in a baseball team, and you pull these other kids that are on the baseball team together, and your child's the one that won't sit on the bench long enough to play the game. They get up, and they get in trouble for things that traditionally kids can learn to do, and maybe your child's one of those children that is really struggling around that because of their emotional challenges or behavioral challenges. So it's important to consider that part of that support network needs to be getting families connected to other peer families. And by peer families, I mean other families that are raising children with challenges. And oftentimes, this is the key to really help the family maintain the wraparound, is having that peer network to be supported by. You can all look at the family partners in the room and realize, or maybe you can, I don't know, but I guess is that you realize that they support one another. There are many days that a lot of us that we can come into the office when you're a family partner and you're among your people because you can sit down and you don't have to be worried about letting others know what's going on at home. You're among peers, and that is a crucial piece for the family as well during this process. We are really preparing the parent to manage, and part of that piece that the family partner will be doing in wraparound during this transition phase is, helping the family introduce to, if there are future providers, to those future providers, going out and facilitating those face-to-face meetings. I mean, you can give someone a whole list of supports to be connected to or providers to be connected to, but unless someone goes with you and really kind of makes that section smooth, it won't happen. And so the family partner does a lot of that building and introducing. They may practice spirals with the family on, if there's a crisis and this happens, what will you do then? So that it becomes second nature to the family. Hopefully that's been going on all along. They do a portfolio during this last phase, and that would include everything that went into that original binder that we talked about in the beginning, but also the news story about the family's strengths and the accomplishments that they've made during this whole process, about their support networks, about phone numbers for people they might need to be connected with in the future. The other pieces during this last phase is to celebrate the family's achievement, to have, I don't like to make it to call it a discharge party, but, what is respectful of the family's culture, it's time to celebrate at this point. Families are moving into a whole different state where hopefully they can continue to get on their own. The way you know if you've really made a difference is when family goes through a crisis and they don't call you anymore. They manage it on their own. Or you look at the child and family team meeting and the parent wants to facilitate the meeting themselves. You know that you've done your job when you get to that point. Opportunities here are, as Kim and I both have talked already about a lot of these, is just those purposeful connections, the aftercare options, your care coordinator and the family partner are working to make sure that all these things have happened. What are the potential crises that could happen? What are some unmet needs that may happen when the child hits puberty? These all be brainstormed. The leadership can really help hone in on these areas, and the care coordinator and family partner can really work to make sure that these things are happening. The key, I think, can you go to the next slide? Go back, please. The key here is that being mindful and really communicating. It's open communication back and forth, not only with the family but with each other, and making sure that the two of you are on the same page to make this work for the family that you're working with. Okay.
Right, so in phase 4, a few products that I think we've already discussed again, that written plan of care is now going to become a written transition plan for the family. So again, it's going to be very detailed, very specific, and very concrete for the family, as well as the rest of the team, about what to do if there is a need that emerges, or if there is, there are additional services or support that are necessary. Again, we're going to also have a written crisis plan. So you don't want to leave the family without a crisis plan because, as we know, crises occur. So we want to make sure that they're prepared and that there's a plan on what to do if specific crises occur or if behaviors reemerge. Again, we want to make sure that everyone has contact information for all team members. It's so crucial to ensure that when we do end formal wraparounds, that everyone still knows how to get in touch with each other. I've had plenty of families that, when they've reached transition, they've continued to hold their own child and family team meetings with me of the same team members that were part of their team. Oftentimes, that may not include a lot of the professionals anymore unless they're still involved in some of those same services and supports. But so it's important to ensure that everyone knows how to reach one another. And then again, as we talked about, we want to have that formal discharge document that really details everything that's occurred, as well as written letters of introduction for family. Because what we don't want to have happen is the family to have to arrive at a formal service provider's door and not be able to show them all of the amazing work and accomplishments that have been attained through wraparound. Want them to be able to share that information with new folks. And so that's where certain products such as that transition binder, as well as those letters of introduction, can be hugely important.
I've already gone over these, the complete products for transition and the transition portfolio. So let's move to the next slide, Kim.
Mm-hmm.
So this slide really illustrates both the care coordinator and family partner both have their own role and responsibility. They are clearly, I hope we were able to outline kind of the work that they each will be doing individually. But there is, where you can see the arrow pointing down to that overlap in the middle, and it's probably a little bit bigger of an overlap than we've illustrated here. But there is that crucial piece where there's that coming together, that working together to really make around work better, more effectively, support the family more efficiently, and really hopefully from what we see, and I will say to those researchers in the group that it's anecdotal. I'm still working on getting somebody to collect this data. When we see care coordinators and family partners working together, we tend to see better outcomes in wraparound, just because we're supporting one another and the two of us are supporting the family in the team process. It works better. And last slide, I'll leave you with a quote today. I wish it was a little zippier quote, but this is one that makes sense. Together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. And that's from Henry Ford. Thank you for joining us today and listening to us talk at you for 2 hours. Are talking into kind of a what feels like a outer space there. Not here in the out loud, but we've hoped that we've been able to kind of shed some light on the confusion that I think probably we were responsible for creating, and being able to help you understand what your roles are. Kim, where do we go from here?
Yeah, and one of the things I do want to just mention is this is a first step. So the webinar is not considered to be the end-all, be-all our work regarding partnership. We wanted to try and lay out concretely for you, again, as we said, those roles, responsibilities, partnership opportunities, and products. But this is going to be something that when we return to New York in January, Joanne and I will be continuing to work on with all of the local coaches that we're supporting in the certification process. And as well, we're going to be working on establishing a group supervision process that will hopefully support this partnership and these partnership opportunities for families, teams, and also the process. So we'd like to open it up now for any questions. So Adam, if you would mind unmuting the line, that would be great. And if there's any questions regarding this webinar or any of the things that were discussed here today, please feel free to ask.
Joanne?
Hi. Yes.
Kristen, I have a process question or documentation question. My understanding historically has been if it's an event a team member or something a team member is doing, it needs to be in the plan of care. And so I was wondering specifically about the family partner activities and the transition activities. Should those be listed in the plan of care?
Do you want to answer for the family partner piece?
Sure. Traditionally should be. I've gone over mostly today responsibilities. So the partner will be doing. And just like the care coordinators, developing the plan of care is not, I guess it might be listed in the plan. But that part seems just more like responsibilities. There will be things that happened in those team meetings that we decided upon. Hopefully, in the team meetings, family team meetings, there will be brainstorming done and there will be tasks assigned. What Kim and I like to see is that everyone that attends a family team meeting leads with the task, okay? And the majority of those tasks should be done by others than the care coordinator and necessarily family partner, but the family partner will be doing a considerable amount. I mean, our general things, and probably this would, speak more to what your note regulations are and everything about what needs to be, how specific it needs to be as far as what the family partner is doing. The family partner is spending a considerable amount of time supporting the parent, helping them understand the process, helping them understand the terminology, helping them find their voice, helping them sort priorities, helping them decide when things need to be modified, connecting them to resources. I mean, those are all things that could be included in the plan. How specific it needs to be probably depends on, your own regulations there.
And I would just sort of add to that. I think that if it is something that is part of their role or the responsibilities that we have listed here, there may need to be some additional clarification in the plan of care regarding exactly how some of that's going to happen. So, for example, I think about family partner is going to work with the family around, engaging additional team members. That would probably be something we would want to put in the plan because that would be a strategy, and then there would be numerous tasks maybe associated with that. I think that, want to make it as detailed as possible for the family. But if it's just basic things like, the facilitator will be responsible for facilitating the meeting and documenting the plan of care, I don't think that needs to be in it. That's a specific role for that individual in the process, and I think that that should be understood. That doesn't necessarily need to be in the plan. What we need to remember, though, is if we've got people that are doing things outside of the meeting and it's not documented in the plan, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. So there's some great things that are going on. I know that, I oftentimes hear about some of these, more creative and unique ideas that are happening. For example, maybe somebody has found out about a great art camp and, they've gone through like getting the youth to apply for that and participate, but then there's no documentation of that in the plan. So if strategies and tasks associated with those strategies are not documented in the plan, it didn't happen because that's something that the whole team needs to be aware of. All planning occurs in the team, and so we need to have, concrete documentation to support that planning occurs. Is that Kristen?
Sort of. This is what we're actually asking about is when the family partner goes out to redo the cast or redo the support cast, like in the third phase, do you need to put that, or is that just a function of the family partner?
That's where the question came up when that.
Well, it is a function of the family partner, but I think that for me, I would talk more about the results of doing the cast and the connections and support. Family partner would reevaluate the family support network, evaluate progress. You can, rather than name the tools that you'll be using, you can really name the activity. And again, those kinds of things are important to document them. You've always got researchers and evaluators looking at things deciding what elements were in process to help make it successful. That kind of stuff is important. It means that you're paying attention to details. Does that make sense?
So we would add the things that were developed and found out during the point in time, such as new strengths, new informal supports or formal supports, and those types of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Try the activity and the results, probably. I think it's move further along.
It's important for you guys to understand what the products are. But again, that's for your understanding. A lot of times these acronyms won't have any meaning to a family, such as the cast and stuff like that. They won't have meaning to the team. So you guys know that the information you're receiving, first of all, when it needs to happen on a quarterly basis, and then also the information that you're receiving from it, how it will feed back into the process and form new activities.
Yeah.
Being written, when we do it, we report back what we did. So it's not written into the plan that we did it. So it's possible to do these things without it being written into the plan.
Yeah. I think the important thing to discover is, or to document, is the work that's being done. And rather than, as Kim said, the specifics as far as, Andy did the cast with the family. Really neat. Well, why? Why did you do the cast with the family? You're really trying to determine the amount of support the family needed. So Marie will determine, support needs of family. Or Anne-Marie will focus on helping family build support network, what it happens to be. You have to remember that these plans of care, the families are reviewing them and looking at them and reading them. So sometimes I say it needs to be simple enough that grandma can read it because the youth is reading it too. And to be a word that makes sense.
To be meaningful to the family, not to us just as professionals. And that's where we need to remember what's important for this family. You guys all know what your tasks are and what your responsibilities are. So how can we make this plan meaningful to the family?
I'd ask the family partners, if it was your child and family team plan of care, what would you want written in there to help you understand what was happening? And a good way to kind of reframe it.
Mm-hmm. Other questions?
There's no Kim.
Again, I think that what we would like, just as we said after introduction training, we'd like for you guys to take this information. I mentioned it will be recorded, so we will send it out. You can have access to this again, as well as the PowerPoint. Just like to ensure that you guys go back and begin implementing this. I know it's right around the holidays, but, going back and begin to ensure if you're not already working in partnership together in these activities, that you begin doing so. So that way when we come in the second week of January, we can also elicit some feedback as to how things are going. How is this process working? Have there been challenges? Are you struggling with implementation? What's the impact it's had on the family? And so that way we can start to do some troubleshooting, and if there are areas of breakdown, we can revisit those and try and support you more in terms of your implementation of your own role, your own responsibilities, and your products as well.
And this is Christine. I have a question for you, really for the group. I've talked to you about this many times, the time piece. I'm just wondering if there's anybody that has successfully been able to go in and get all this stuff done in a couple of visits. I have really, really struggled, and get a real family story that then is going to put the other pieces you guys have. Yep. I would personally like to shadow somebody who's able to do that, because for me to get that family story and get all that information has taken probably the family partner and myself at least 5 visits. So.
I tell you, one thing that I mean, honestly, I think we need to be careful about, again, making sure that we're structured when we walk in there, and so we understand areas we need to elicit around as well. So again, it needs to be a guided process for us, so that way we're guiding the conversation to hit on the key pieces that we need. You should never have more than 2 visits as a care coordinator with a family prior to the initial child and family team meeting. If, with time and with practice, you hopefully should be able to fine-tune your skills around eliciting that information. But again, it's not about you, it's about family. So we need to be very, very conscious of how much of this family's time we're taking up. There's information we need, but do we need all the nitty-gritty detail? No. There's targeted information that we need to elicit around. And if we're working together and if we're strategic in doing that, and we're building off of the information we've received from intake, rather than recreating the wheel and trying to do that all again, we should be able to get that targeted information within to maximum. And visits should be no more than an hour piece.
Sam, what I want to throw out there as well is that there are 2 meetings that the care coordinator and the family partner attend together, but there's also an additional one-on-one meeting prior to the first child and family team meeting that the family partner has with the family. That, if you haven't been utilizing the information that the family partner gathers from that meeting, it's crucial, because it's duplicative. If the partner goes out by themselves and they hear certain information that, and then they have to go out back together again and repeat it, ends up, as Kim said, being somewhat of a burden. So the key here is you go out together the first time. There's maybe some information that you haven't been able to ascertain. Family partner is going to make that meeting to go out one-on-one. Make sure that they gather the information that's missing on that second one-on-one meeting, and then the 2 of you talk, and then go back out together again for that third meeting together. Well, second meeting together. Right? It's just 2 meetings together and 1 separate.
So we don't want this process to be overwhelming for families. And when we start to meet with families that many times before we've even had an initial meeting, what comes to my mind is, so what is going on? Are we really just eliciting information, or are we beginning to do planning as well? So when we need to be balanced in just how much information do we need, how much information do we already have that we can utilize and build off of, and what targeted information do we need to make sure that we elicit. And again, that partnership of working together and trusting each other. Trusting that if you feel like there's a gap or you miss something, the family partner that you're working with can go back and gather that information and share it with you, and vice versa.
Can I ask another question related? If there's a hospital discharge or the school needs to call a meeting, and the parent and the school are working together, kind of when we first get involved, sometimes it's a hospital discharge, there are other things going on in use. Would you suggest that we go to the home first before the hospital meeting? Because we're requested, if it's fine, we might be requested to attend, whether it's a school meeting, especially a hospital discharge. Would you suggest that we go out and meet the family first and count?
Prior to actually starting with the family, Christine, or do you mean like there's a crisis, the kid is hospitalized?
I mean, a lot of times that's why they're coming to the system of care, because there's so much of that stuff going on already.
Right.
So, I'm just thinking like a hospital discharge meeting or something like that. The hospital's got their own agenda of what they need to discuss. The school's got their own agenda of what they need to discuss. So I'm assuming those meetings would just be in addition to our...
I think that's individualized, and so it's really going to depend on what is appropriate for the family based on what we know about the family. So obviously, if we have a crisis situation that occurs that results in hospitalization, or have a crisis situation that occurs at the school, we need to have a meeting within 72 hours of that crisis occurring where we pull the team together. And so we talk about and plan around, what happened, what we can do differently, what new strategies we may need to put into place to manage those. I know that oftentimes you guys also will receive referrals where there's a youth that maybe still is in a placement other than in their home or in a hospitalized setting prior to, you actually having that initial child and family team meeting. And says that would be individualized based on, is it important for us to talk with the family prior to the youth being discharged to ensure that, we have a plan in place and we have a meeting scheduled to meet those discharge needs. But, yeah, our wraparound is not going to be like, so cookie cutter in terms of the text and responsibility. Those should look very similar. But in terms of how certain things are implemented, we, again, want to make sure that we're talking to the family and getting their choice and their voice, over different pieces, since each family is so unique.
And this is where I would also encourage you to utilize your family partners. I mean, ask them, hey, if your child is just being discharged from the hospital, would you want, me to show up prior to the hospital visit? Would you want me at the hospital visit? And oftentimes your family partners have that pulse on really family members' perspective, being able to support around what's best for the family, what makes most sense.
Questions?
Kim, I think if you offered before, but if everybody's implementing some of these ideas, if you can be available to them via email or phone call, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, we'd really like to see you guys do is we'd like for you to reach out to your coaches first, because your coaches are to support you, and they have a lot of insight that they've been gathering through this process. So we'd encourage you to do that. And then prior to our visit, in mid-January, if the coaches could also, any questions or concerns or challenges that emerge, if you guys could send us, that information, that way we'll be prepared and we'll make sure that we help to provide additional clarification when we come in January.
That works. So
Okay, so that way we can, see are there similar challenges or, questions, or, are these individualized types of situations that we can talk about in different ways.
we had a question from Becky.
It's supposed to snow tomorrow, so can you email me a phone number and a code so if it snows, Kristen and I can call from home?
Yes, I certainly can. Yes, ma'am. Oh, thank you for telling me that. Yeah, you guys don't need anything else besides just a telephone, so hopefully it doesn't snow too hard.
Okay, so then we can call in our pajamas and hot chocolate.
Absolutely. Good. You can call in your jammies with some hot cocoa. That'll be nice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all so very much, and we're looking forward to seeing you. In the meantime, have a wonderful Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and New Year, and any other holidays I may have missed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.